All right, what you see here is a work surface I made for myself out of scrap wood. It's material that's been sitting in that corner for years. I need a solid, heavy duty work surface sometimes. You need a work table. It should be solid hardwood, pretty dense, so you can pound on things. And, it's just something. I had to mill up some redwood to an inch thick that I'm making a panel for to replace a door while I'm working on the door. And I figured since I had to do the tool setup, let me get some of this out of the corner and make this up right now. A couple things about it. Overall, it's 19 and 9/16 of an inch deep. It's a little over 5 feet long right now, and it is just under an inch and 3/4. This thing weighs somewhere between 80 and 100 pounds. It could be a little more. It's thick. I left this big knot here on purpose because there's times when I want to tap something through something else, and that'll come in handy, I believe. I could do a Dutchman patch on these ones here, no big deal. Um, I didn't think of this till after. I was just doing the final milling on this before this last glue up, and if I'd thought ahead, if I was going to do this again, these thin pieces in here, I would mill those to be very specific dimensions. Because if you had one that's exactly an inch, exactly 3/4 of an inch, exactly a half inch, exactly 5/8 of an inch, then you could take material and you can lay it on there. And go, okay, that's perfect. That's perfect. You don't have to break out the tape measure so much, or the scale, or whatever it is, your ruler, whatever you're using. So just something for you to think about in the future for yourself. You know, this here is exactly an inch thick. I know that, so that could come in handy for you down the road. Um, there is so in my corner in my apartment right now, you guys see me do the Sunday night chat, and to my right, it'll be your left when you're looking at the screen. There's a craft corner I made for myself. It's too tiny. The light isn't great there. I've got lights on, but I have a press I made. You guys saw the press for the leather craft, and I was using that, and that piece of African mahogany that I cut out of a piece of furniture I made for myself years prior, earlier. I was using the press, and I heard a crunching sound because I had it resting on this cheap pressboard IKEA file cabinet on wheels, and it just collapsed the wheels up into the bottom. So I put a cleat on the wall. Now it's sturdy enough to press with, but from the corner on the back wall out to about where the chair is, I've got about 5 feet there. So this could fit right there. I don't know that I want to do that because it kind of turns the whole area into a work area, but it might make sense for productivity. But really, I made this for the house I have in Arizona. It's a small house. It's 2 bedrooms, and there's a front bedroom that's going to be a guest room slash craft room slash podcast room, I suppose. And I'll do like a futon thing in there, one of those modern. It looks like a sofa, but you just click it, it opens up to a bed, so there's not a bed in there eating up all the room. And this is going to go from the corner underneath the window, and that'll be a great work surface. I'll probably make more of these for myself, even for the garage or the wood shop that I eventually construct there, because it looks better than anything else. It's just cool, which always looks good on camera. With the YouTube and everything, it'll look cool, but it serves a purpose, and it's this thing is so heavy. Jesus, this is heavy, man. I'm not exaggerating. Inch and 3/4 inch thick hardwood, thick stuff. These two pieces here aren't as thick as the rest, but it doesn't matter. The top is flat, and I do a thing when I'm gluing where I wipe it down with water. It does a couple things. It removes the glue, but it also raises the grain. It's a little finish tip for you. You glue things up, use a wet rag to wipe all the glue off, and don't worry about it. Then sand it. And, I'm not going to tell you how to sand. You all have your own techniques. I have mine. I've gone to sheet sanders over random orbit sanders. Random orbit sanders, I find, leave too much swirl mark that you got to deal with. The sheet sanders are tighter. But in the end, like with this here, I probably could just go over this with a block. I have sanding blocks that I will wrap with different grits and go with the grain. And I usually end up going to about a 150 is all before I apply first coat of finish. I do a wipe on polyurethane. I got to get this stuff from Nevada or Arizona because it's not water based. And my technique on that is I will usually do at least 2 coats, sometimes 3, without sanding in between coats. They tell you to sand between coats, but I find you just end up sanding off the finish. And again, if you wet this down and sand it and then wet it down again and then do a final sand on it with the direction of the grain and everything, I find that when you start applying finish, the first coat doesn't typically raise the grain, or not very much at all. Normally, people aren't wetting things down. So when they put the first coat of finish down, it raises the grain and makes it rough. That's why they tell you to sand the finish. So if you raise the grain and eliminate that as an issue, you won't have as many issues when you start applying finish. The reason why I will put on 2 to 3 coats is that the first time I sand the finish, now I'm actually sanding the finish. If you sand after the first coat, sometimes even after the second coat, you're sanding through the finish because it penetrates. That's just my tip for you. Again, not telling you that's how you have to do it. I'm just telling you that's how I do it. And it works for me. And typically I'll do 4 coats, sometimes more. And that's usually enough. And then I usually finish it off with a paste wax, rubbing things out by hand. On this, it's not important. It's a work surface, so the polyurethane will be enough. And that's it. I hope you guys appreciate it and get it. This is something you can do. I think the big tip here is, again, if each one of these pieces is milled to a very specific width, that you typically use those widths for projects that you're making, it could save you a lot of time in the long run. You could do things, people will inlay a tape sometimes right on the surface. There's nothing wrong with that. I may do that here. But again, I just made this out of scrap wood that was left over from furniture projects going back. I've probably had some of this wood for 10 years or more. So that's it. Hope you guys enjoyed it. Thanks, really, seriously, thanks for being here. Come back often. Maybe tell your friends. I'll catch you in the next one.